Do you ever wonder if all this suffering is supposed to mean something? The endless work, the heartbreak, the loneliness. Sometimes I think pain is the only teacher we really have.
Easy for you to say. You read books. I break my back 12 hours a day. Pain doesn't feel like a teacher, it feels like chains.
And yet, who do you think becomes stronger? The one who floats through comfort, or the one who crawls through fire? Maybe pain is the only reason greatness ever exists.
Greatness? Then why do most of us die forgotten? Maybe the fire just burns us up.
Or maybe the ashes are the soil where greatness begins. That's what Nietzsche believed, that we are made in the crucible of suffering.
What if I told you that the very thing you spend your whole life avoiding, the suffering, the failures, the heartbreaks, are not obstacles, but the gateway to your highest potential? That without pain, there is no greatness, and without struggle, there is no self-worth saving. Imagine a life stripped of struggle. No heartbreaks, no disappointments, no sleepless nights where you stare at the ceiling wondering if you'll ever make it through. At first, it sounds like paradise. But look deeper. If nothing tests you, if nothing breaks you, if nothing scars you, who would you become? A comfortable ghost. A shadow of what you could have been. This is a paradox Nietzsche grasped with merciless clarity, that the road to greatness runs directly through the valley of suffering. Friedrich Nietzsche once declared, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." He wasn't romanticizing pain for the sake of it. He was diagnosing life itself. We are creatures who bleed, who lose, who stumble again and again. And yet, within this very brokenness lies the possibility of creation. Art, philosophy, strength, wisdom. So in this video, we'll explore why pain doesn't just accompany greatness. It creates it. We'll walk through Nietzsche's vision of suffering, his warnings against comfort, and his challenge to us, to not only endure pain, but to use it as fuel. This journey isn't about glorifying pain. It's about seeing it for what it truly is, the raw material of transformation. In the next sections, we'll uncover 1. Why suffering is not an accident but a necessity. 2. How Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch emerges from hardship, not ease. 3. Why comfort is a silent killer of greatness, and why our modern world, obsessed with avoiding discomfort, is making us weaker. 4. And finally, what this means for you, how your own struggles might be the birthplace of something extraordinary. So let's begin not by running away from pain, but by staring directly into its eyes. Nietzsche lived what he preached. He wasn't some distant professor writing abstract theories. His life was marked by illness, loneliness, betrayal, and mental collapse. Abandoned by friends, rejected in love, plagued by migraines so intense they left him bedridden for days. Nietzsche's existence was a battlefield of the body and mind. And yet, out of this suffering, he forged words that still burn like fire. What does not kill me makes me stronger. But let's not reduce this to a cliche. Nietzsche didn't mean that every bruise automatically makes you better. No, he meant that suffering is raw chaos and you have a choice. Either collapse under it or forge yourself into something new through it. Pain is indifferent. It destroys as much as it creates. The question is, which side will you choose? This is why Nietzsche compared life to forging steel. Without the hammer, the fire, the endless beating and reshaping, the steel remains weak. It is only through the violence of pressure that it becomes unbreakable. A man alone in his room, candles burning low, his hands trembling over the desk. His head is pounding, his heart broken, his mind fracturing under the weight of endless thoughts. He writes anyway, word by word, line by line. Those words will outlive him by centuries. Why? Because they were carved out of agony. Pain was his anvil, his suffering the hammer, greatness the spark that survived. So, the next time you ask yourself, why me? Why this pain? Why this endless struggle? Remember, it is not punishment. It is not cruelty. It is possibility. The possibility to become something greater than the life you were handed. Nietzsche's challenge is not to avoid pain, but to face it so fully that you transform it. To look at your scars and say, this is where I began. Suffering is not an error in the system. It is the system. In the introduction, we saw that Nietzsche didn't simply survive pain. He wielded it like fire. But why? Why insist that pain is not just inevitable, but essential? Because Nietzsche argued life without struggle is not life at all. It is stagnation, rot, decay dressed as comfort. Pain isn't a glitch in the code. It's the very logic of existence. We are told from childhood to avoid pain. Parents shelter their children. Schools cushion failure. Society celebrates the easy path, the shortcut, the life hack. But if we strip life of struggle, what remains? Nietzsche believed that greatness emerges only when something resists us, that the muscles of the soul, like the muscles of the body, can only grow by tearing, by being tested, by being forced to adapt. Think of the mountain climber. If there were no mountain, no jagged cliff, no oxygen-deprived summit, then what would climbing mean? The mountain's cruelty is its gift. The danger is the meaning. Without resistance, there is nothing to overcome. Without suffering, there is no story worth telling. Consider Homer's Odyssey. At one point in his endless journey, Odysseus and his crew encounter the Lotus Eaters, a people who live in perfect comfort. They eat the lotus flower and forget their struggles, their goals, even their names. They dissolve into blissful emptiness. No pain, no hardship, no longing, and yet no greatness, no growth, no legacy. Odysseus drags his men away because he knows. To stay is to die, not in body, but in spirit. Nietzsche would say the same of us. Comfort that erases pain erases the very engine of our becoming. This is why Nietzsche despised the morality of comfort, what he called the slave morality of avoiding pain at all costs. He believed it created weak, resentful humans, people who would rather complain than fight, who would rather conform than create. To him, suffering wasn't cruelty from a universe. It was the raw clay for which the strongest souls are shaped. He wrote, "The discipline of suffering, of great suffering." Do you not know that it is this discipline alone which has created every elevation of mankind hitherto? Every elevation, every breakthrough, every masterpiece, born not from comfort, but from fire. Think about the human body. When your skin is cut, it bleeds. It scars. The scar never disappears. But in its permanence, it tells a story. Here, you were broken. Here, you healed stronger. Nietzsche saw the human spirit the same way. Every scar is proof of survival. Every hardship a reminder that you didn't vanish when life tried to erase you. Greatness, then, is not the absence of scars. It is their accumulation. A body, a mind, a soul engraved by trials, yet standing, still burning. Now, consider our world today. We live in an era obsessed with avoiding discomfort. Painkillers for every headache. Apps that promise happiness in 3 steps. Corporations that sell comfort as the highest good. Buy this, eat this, binge this, and you'll never have to feel the weight of emptiness again. But what has this done to us? Anxiety and depression are higher than ever, not because we suffer more, but because we suffer less meaningfully. We suffer emptily. Nietzsche would argue that in numbing ourselves, we've forgotten the purpose of pain. Instead of transforming it into creation, we drown it in distraction. Comfort sedates. Pain awakens. Here is Nietzsche's brutal truth. Suffering is unavoidable. You will suffer, whether you hide in comfort or fight through hardship. The only choice you have is whether your suffering will be meaningless or transformative. A meaningless suffering is the pain of avoidance, the pain of a life unlived, the pain of regret. A transformative suffering is the pain of striving, the pain of trying, the pain of falling and rising again. One shrinks you, the other builds you. So when Nietzsche insists that suffering is not an accident but a necessity, he is not being cruel. He is reminding us of something we tried to forget, that the soul, like steel, is forged in fire. Every great philosopher, every artist, every revolutionary, without exception, was a child of suffering, not because they sought it, but because they refused to waste it. And so the question turns back to you. When pain knocks at your door, will you let it break you, or will you let it shape you? Out of the ashes of suffering, Nietzsche envisioned a figure that could rise above the mediocrity of ordinary life, a figure who transforms agony into power, despair into creation. He called this figure the Übermensch. We've seen that pain is not a glitch in life, but its foundation. Yet Nietzsche didn't stop there. He asked, what kind of human being can rise through suffering instead of collapsing under it? The answer was radical. It wasn't the comfortable man, not the conformist, not the weak soul who seeks shelter in tradition, morality, or the approval of the crowd. It was the one who dares to create values of his own, the Übermensch or Overman. For Nietzsche, the Übermensch is not a superhero in the modern sense. He isn't about muscles or magic. He is about spirit, about the ability to take the chaos of suffering and forge it into meaning. Pain is the crucible. The Übermensch is what emerges if one endures long enough to transmute that pain into creation. Think of it this way. Most people are broken by life. A few survive life. But the Übermensch goes further. He takes life's broken pieces and builds something that has never existed before. Nietzsche illustrates this transformation in his masterpiece, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. He describes the soul's journey in 3 stages. 1. The camel, the soul that bears heavy burdens. It kneels and says, load me with the weight of duty, morality, suffering. The camel represents endurance. It is weighed down, but it survives. 2. The lion, the soul that rebels. The lion roars, saying, I will not be enslaved by your commandments, your traditions, your false truths. The lion destroys old values, smashes chains, and claims freedom. 3. The child, the final stage. Innocent, creative, playful. The child does not merely endure like the camel, nor destroy like the lion. The child creates. It says yes to life, even to suffering. It makes meaning out of chaos. The Übermensch is this child, the one who turns pain into play, hardship into creation. Why is suffering so essential to this process? Because without it, the camel never learns to endure, the lion never finds the strength to rebel, and the child never learns to create. Suffering is not just background noise. It is a furnace that forces a soul to metamorphose. Without it, we remain static, childish in the worst sense, fragile, entitled, untested. Nietzsche's Übermensch is proof that pain, when embraced, does not destroy. It transforms. Think of Vincent van Gogh. His life was agony, mental illness, poverty, loneliness, rejection. He died by his own hand, convinced he was a failure. And yet, in his torment, he painted visions the world had never seen. Starry Night is not the work of a comfortable man. It is the work of someone who wrestled with madness and turned it into light. This is Nietzsche's point. The Übermensch is not someone untouched by pain, but someone who takes the chaos of pain and shapes it into beauty, power, or truth. Nietzsche's philosophy can be seen as a kind of alchemy. In medieval times, alchemists sought to transform lead into gold. Nietzsche saw suffering as a lead of life, heavy, ugly, base. But through courage, endurance, and creativity, the soul can turn that lead into gold. The Übermensch is the alchemist of suffering. Now, compare this with our culture today. We glorify the opposite. Safety, sameness, numbing routines. We outsource meaning to corporations, religions, governments. We inherit values instead of creating them. Nietzsche would look at this and see not the birth of greatness, but the death of it. A culture of camels, endlessly bearing the burdens of conformity, never daring to roar like lions, never daring to create like children. We are, in his words, the last men, creatures who seek only comfort, health, and entertainment, too timid to risk pain, too weak to rise above mediocrity. The Übermensch, by contrast, is the one who rejects this sedative existence, who looks pain in the eye and says, I will not only endure you, I will turn you into art. So, when Nietzsche speaks of the Übermensch, he isn't describing an unreachable myth. He is describing a possibility for you, for anyone. But here's the truth. The path to the Übermensch is not easy. It demands that you suffer, that you rebel, that you create. It demands that you die to your old self and rise again, scarred yet unbroken. And that raises a haunting question. If pain is what makes greatness possible, then why do so many of us flee from it? Why do we cling to comfort, even when it slowly kills us? Nietzsche feared many things, but above all, he feared humanity addicted to comfort, because he knew that comfort is not peace. Comfort is decay disguised as safety. In the last section, we uncovered Nietzsche's vision of the Übermensch, the one who transforms suffering into creation. But Nietzsche also saw a danger. Not everyone will rise through pain. Most will run from it. And when they do, they become something smaller, weaker, emptier. This, he warned, would give birth to a culture of mediocrity, a culture of what he called the last man. Nietzsche describes the last man in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. They are not heroes, not creators, not thinkers. They are ordinary people who have made comfort their God. They avoid pain, avoid risk, avoid anything that might wound them. And in doing so, they avoid life itself. He writes of them mockingly. We have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. Blink, small, safe, dull. The last men do not suffer, but they also do not rise. They live long, but they never live deeply. They are the death of greatness. History has given us countless warnings of this pattern. Consider Rome. In its early years, Rome was forged in blood and hardship. Soldiers marched thousands of miles. Farmers fought to defend their land. Leaders were hardened by real struggle. Out of that crucible, greatness emerged. Architecture, philosophy, law. But centuries later, when Rome was at its most comfortable, when bread and circuses filled the bellies and distracted the minds, decay set in, luxury softened them, comfort sedated them. The empire collapsed not from outside enemies, but from within. Rome didn't fall in battle. Rome rotted in comfort. Nietzsche feared the same fate for us. And look at our world today. Never before have humans had so much comfort. Food at the push of a button. Entertainment on glowing screens. Medicine for every ache. Distractions for every boredom. And yet, why do so many of us feel empty? Why do we live with quiet despair? Even as we surround ourselves with comforts our ancestors could not have imagined. Because comfort is not nourishment. It is sedation. It numbs the very parts of us that were meant to fight, to grow, to overcome. Nietzsche would say, we are not alive. We are merely anesthetized. Imagine a prison cell made not of steel bars, but of pillows. Soft walls, cozy corners, endless cushions. At first, it feels like paradise. But slowly you realize you cannot move. You cannot grow. You cannot breathe. That is what comfort does. It is a cage disguised as a sanctuary. Nietzsche despised mediocrity not because it was weak, but because it was contagious. A culture obsessed with comfort breeds citizens who fear pain more than they love greatness. It raises children to avoid challenge, to demand safety, to accept smallness. And the result? A society of last men, shallow, risk-averse, allergic to suffering, incapable of greatness. This is why Nietzsche's words burn so fiercely today. He saw where we were headed, and he tried to warn us. Think of every artist who chose the hard path over the comfortable one. Kafka, writing feverishly at night, while working a dead-end job by day. Dostoevsky, creating masterpieces after years in prison camps. Even Nietzsche himself, writing through illness and madness. If they had chosen comfort, the world would never have known them. Comfort kills creation. Pain births it. So, Nietzsche's warning echoes to us across centuries. Beware the seduction of comfort. It does not love you. It does not free you. It erases you quietly until nothing of you remains. The last men live longest, Nietzsche sneered, but they do not truly live at all. And that leaves us with a haunting question. If comfort is death disguised as peace, then how do we confront it? How do we live differently so that our pain becomes creation instead of emptiness? Not all kindness is virtue. Sometimes it is fear in disguise. Sometimes morality itself is a prison built by the weak to restrain the strong. We saw in the last section that comfort can be the silent killer of growth. But Nietzsche warned of another danger, one even harder to see, because it wears the mask of goodness. It is the morality of the herd. The morality that preaches pity, obedience, conformity. The morality that tells you, be safe, be good, don't question, don't rise above. And Nietzsche believed this morality was not noble, it was poison. Nietzsche distinguished between two kinds of morality. One, master morality, the morality of strength. It values courage, creation, vitality, excellence. It is born from those who embrace life, even with its suffering. Two, slave morality, the morality of weakness. It values meekness, obedience, pity, safety. It is born from those who cannot endure suffering, and so they seek to restrain those who can. In Nietzsche's view, much of modern morality is slave morality. It tells us to avoid struggle, to resent strength, to call greatness arrogance and weakness virtue. Picture a man who fails, not once, but many times. Instead of learning, instead of rising, he grows bitter. He looks at those who succeed and says, "They are selfish. They are evil. They don't deserve it." His bitterness becomes morality. He convinces others that success itself is wrong, that ambition is dangerous, that suffering must be avoided at all costs. And slowly, a society built on resentment is born. Nietzsche called this raisonnement, the morality of the defeated, turned against the strong. Now, Nietzsche did not condemn kindness itself. He condemned kindness that comes not from strength, but from weakness. True kindness, he believed, comes from power, the power to harm, yet choosing not to. False kindness comes from fear, the inability to stand up, so one hides behind pity and calls it goodness. In this way, kindness can become a shield. Morality can become a disguise, a way to avoid pain, responsibility, or growth. Think of the person who gives money to charity, not out of love, but out of guilt. They don't want to face their own emptiness, so they buy the illusion of goodness. Their kindness is not strength. It is escape. Nietzsche would say, such kindness has no greatness in it. It avoids suffering rather than transforming it. Imagine a garden. On the surface, it looks beautiful. Flowers everywhere, soft paths, gentle fountains. But beneath the soil, the roots are rotting. The flowers grow weak because the soil has no struggle, no storms, no resistance. That is what morality without suffering creates. A fragile beauty, destined to collapse at the first storm. Nietzsche accused morality itself of becoming a tool for mediocrity. He argued that religions, governments, even communities often use morality to keep people obedient, to tame the wildness in them, to make them safe. But safe for whom? For the herd, for the system, for the weak majority that fears the greatness of the few. Nietzsche believed true greatness comes when we dare to step beyond inherited morality, when we create values of our own, even if it means being misunderstood, even hated. Consider the myth of Prometheus. He stole fire from the gods and gave it to mankind. For this, he was chained and punished for eternity. To the gods, his act was arrogance. To humanity, it was greatness. Morality condemned him. Creation immortalized him. That is the tension Nietzsche wanted us to see. Sometimes what is called evil by the herd is, in truth, the seed of greatness. So when Nietzsche looked at kindness, pity, morality, he asked a dangerous question. Is this virtue or is it fear? Because if kindness comes from weakness, it will never create greatness. It will only smother it. And this leads us to the final, most personal challenge of Nietzsche's philosophy. What do we do with our own suffering? Do we hide it under comfort, morality, distraction? Or do we face it, transform it, and rise? We've seen that suffering is not an accident, but necessity. We've seen that comfort weakens, that morality can disguise fear. But Nietzsche's final challenge cuts deeper. Suffering is not only to be endured, it must be embraced as your destiny. In the last section, we expose the shadow side of kindness and the herd morality that smothers greatness. Now we arrive at Nietzsche's most radical insight, that greatness does not come from avoiding pain, nor merely surviving it, but from choosing it, from saying yes to suffering, even when it breaks you. This was the essence of Nietzsche's most daring idea. Amor fati, the love of fate. Amor fati means not just accepting your suffering, but loving it. Not just enduring your burdens, but embracing them as if you had chosen them. Nietzsche imagined a terrifying thought experiment. What if a demon appeared to you in the dead of night and whispered, "You must live this life again exactly as it is for eternity"? Every pain, every humiliation, every heartbreak, over and over? Would you collapse in despair? Or would you rise and say, yes, I want it all again, because it is mine, because even my suffering is sacred? That, for Nietzsche, was a test of greatness. The eternal return isn't about whether the universe literally repeats itself. It's about perspective. It's a challenge. Can you look at your life, your wounds, your scars, your regrets, and affirm them rather than wishing them away? Because if you can, then suffering no longer chains you. It liberates you. The person who hates their past is enslaved by it. The one who embraces it, even its darkest moments, transforms it into power. This is Nietzsche's final lesson. You must not only survive pain, you must learn to say yes to it. Think of your own life, the betrayals, the failures, the moments you thought would destroy you. You didn't choose them. But what if you did? What if every wound was the raw material of who you were meant to become? Nietzsche would say, stop cursing your fate. Claim it. Own it. Say, this pain is mine and I will use it, because only then can suffering cease to be meaningless. Only then does it become destiny. Consider Beethoven, a man whose entire genius depended on sound, and yet he lost his hearing. For many, it would have been the end. A cruel joke by fate. But Beethoven did not collapse. He continued to compose, not despite his deafness, but through it. The Ninth Symphony, one of the greatest achievements in human history, was born in silence. His suffering was not an obstacle. It was the very soil of his immortality. This is amor fati, to not only endure the curse, but to turn it into music. Pain is fire. Left untended, it consumes everything. But if mastered, it becomes light, warmth, energy. Most people are burned by their pain. A few hide from it, but the rarest, the greatest, learn to use it as fuel. This is Nietzsche's dare. Don't run from the fire. Step into it. Let forge you. Nietzsche does not offer comfort. He offers a mirror. He asks you, will you waste your suffering, drowning it in distraction and resentment? Or will you use it to carve out a life that no comfort, no morality, no fear could ever give you? Because in the end, greatness is not handed down. It is not inherited. It is earned in blood, in failure, in fire. So when Nietzsche says, what does not kill me makes me stronger, he does not mean it as a slogan for resilience. He means it as a call to arms, to embrace your suffering so fully that it ceases to be your enemy and becomes your destiny. This is why pain creates greatness. Not because pain itself is noble, but because in the hands of the strong, pain becomes creation. And so the question returns to you. Will you curse your suffering, or will you love it, and through it become something greater than you ever imagined?